We are ready for our next talk, which is actually very complimentary because Adrienne is going to tell you all about how to think about practicality of EEZ and what does this look like from the point of view of Gnosis and the rest of the ecosystem. So please give her a big round of applause.
Hi. Thank you, everyone. So having to come after Stanny, and then Geordie, and then actually the slides I'm going to share with you today are often presented by one of our founders, Frederica, who is also something of a legend. So I'm going to have to ask you to be kind to me, and I'm going to start with a game. So my name is Ads. I'm the head of marketing and comms at Gnosis. And I want to ask you to play for a minute. You've been sitting and listening for a while. I'd like to ask you to raise your hands if you've heard of Gnosis. Cool? Keep your hands in the air if you've heard of more to Gnosis than safe. Good. And if you've heard of more than Gnosis Pay. So I joined Gnosis in August, and one of the things that is most exciting for me as a marketeer is that they are incredible builders. So many of you may not know that our engineers were behind the first constant product AMMs. They were also behind the conditional token framework that underpins Polymarket and a lot of the prediction markets. In addition to SAFE, they also built Cow Protocol. And within our current product stable, we have Gnosis Pay, which is B2B infrastructure for anybody that's building fintechs on chain and still wants to maintain things like self-custody and some of the values that brought us here. We also have our own consumer product that we've been building that we launched back in December in Ireland initially. We have business products, we have a VPN that we're building, we have the chain itself. And as you heard from Geordie, we're also helping with the EEZ, or EEZ. So I modified my presentation slightly so I can share with you kind of my point of view on some of the value that EEZ unlocks for Ethereum. So GM the man, we're forking you, and we are unforking Ethereum. We spent a lot of time thinking about how we drive adoption outside of the bubble without abandoning things like the values that brought us here, because Gnosis, for all its brilliant building, was never in it for the tech. It was always about what the tech could enable. And we've spent time in rooms, I'm sure you've all had that thing where you've tried to explain to some of your friends or your relatives what you're doing and why. We talk about sovereignty and censorship resistance and permissionlessness, and you kind of see the eyes glaze over and they look at you like you maybe have just sprouted a second head. For me, it all boils down to very human, universal concepts around power and ownership. Who has it? What can they do with it? And we've spent a lot of time thinking about how we communicate this. It kind of seems to me like everybody should want this, right? Like, power sounds kind of good. Everybody, it feels attractive. The reality is that actually it also comes with a level of weight, of responsibility. You know, if you have ownership of your assets, then you can lose access to your assets. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how we communicate it, and we think about it, we think about it from lots of different angles. I think actually if you think about ownership, you can think about it through different cultural lenses. You can certain emerging markets, for example, are much more comfortable taking the friction of ownership because they want that level of power and control, because they're in a more often unstable external environment. They don't have the level of comfort handing it up for convenience. You can also look at it through the lens of social class. Poor people, lower socioeconomic groups, we own money, we own cash if we're lucky. The middle class owns their house, maybe their car. The upper class owns the financial instruments that extract value from everyone else. And ownership is not a thing that we take for granted. It's a relatively new thing. It's something that came in the middle of the kind of 20th century. You can see those lines there kind of starting to blip up. And we're losing it again. So over the last couple of decades, the trend has been reversing, and we are gradually surrendering ownership again. And it's very apparent in our digital lives more than anywhere else. You know, we used to buy our software, now we rent it through a subscription. We don't own our books, our music, our films. Our data sits on other people's cloud. You know, our digital identity, our audience, is rented from people like X, Meta, Google, Apple, and it's real. You know, it can feel very convenient until it's not. So if you're the French judge who had sanctions imposed on him from the US for doing his job at The Hague and suddenly lost access to the global banking system, or there was a story making the rounds on Twitter just this week of a young boy who got a little frisky with Gemini. And unfortunately, it caused his and his entire family's Google accounts to be suspended. His parents run their business through their Google accounts. They have to file with accounts. All of the data is in accounts that they can no longer access. His sister was doing her dissertation. It feels very convenient until it isn't. And Web3 was originally supposed to fix that. You know, it was, above all, an ownership revolution. You know, it wasn't about seeing blockchain adopted for its own sake. It was about permissionless open systems being adopted. It was about people having agency over their assets, over their money, over their identity. And we did some really cool stuff. You know, we brought in self-custody. You could categorically own something, your keys, your crypto. We brought in open money systems, permissionless systems that anybody could build on top of, that you couldn't be debanked from, that were interoperable, that were composable. And at the heart of all of this was Ethereum. You know, Ethereum was the cradle for so much of this. And then we broke it. You know, we, and you know, there were lots of good reasons. You know, we were, as we scaled transactions, we brought in the L2 infrastructure, and that solved one really important job for us. But in the process, it fragmented everything else. In the meantime, we see more self-custody products giving way to custodial super apps. We see wallets turning into neobanks with lock-ins. Open rails being replaced with permissioned infrastructure. And you know, that point around Ethereum and the fragmentation of Ethereum is the thing that EEZ, or the Ethereum Economic Zone, is trying to resolve. We can fix it too. Here are some kind of just very practical examples. I'm a simple girl. Everybody here, I'm sure, has had to bridge assets. You know it's not fun. It takes time, it adds cost, it exposes you to risk, and if you want to do it, there are multiple steps. This is anybody building products on this knows that this is a friction users don't really enjoy. EEZ will enable you to call multiple protocols within one single transaction. If you think about the way liquidity works today, you have the same liquidity pools being mirrored on every single chain, within the economic zone. All of those can act as though they are effectively one pool. So CowSwap can direct your trades to the best liquidity pools because it can see all of them. If you look in the world of composable finance, you can have ETH on one chain. If you want to do something with that, you have to bridge it to where you want to stake it. You have to bridge it to where you want to borrow against it. You have to bridge it again to actually use it. With EEZ, that should become easy. You can operate across multiple protocols. You can wrap it in a single transaction. The improvements in UX that this unlock are really, really exciting. Your collateral can be global collateral. The Aave can see what you hold across different chains. You can borrow against it. If you look at Safe, which is obviously very close to our hearts, instead of having different instances on every chain that you have to manage at a granular level, for me this was like one of the big AI unlocks when I started using Cursor to manage my knowledge bases, that you change it once and it reflects everywhere. You can do the same with EEZ effectively. So you change the configuration on your safe and it can reflect everywhere. It can act as though it's effectively one instance. But what's also really exciting is all the things that aren't currently possible. So far we've talked largely about things that feel kind of frictionful. Now we're going to look briefly at some of the things that we just can't really do today, and look at things that are now becoming possible. So one of these is around private identity. With the EEZ framework, you'll be able to have your private identity in a private location, in a private chain. You can prove it across the network without any private information leaving that private domain, and without having to rely on any third parties to handle that for you, without bringing in new trust assumptions. Similarly, we're looking at a lot of institutional use cases. We're looking at institutions that want to stay within private blockchains. You can interact, they can interact with everything in the Ethereum Economic Zone. They can interact with Ethereum itself without private information leaving that private domain. So we think it's going to be an important unlock when we look at mass adoption from the more traditional side of the spectrum as well. And here's the first CTA. So if you are a product builder, if you are a protocol builder, if you are interested in joining the Alliance, we're actively building an alliance of aligned projects at the moment. We have a lot of the block builders already involved. We have Aave and a lot of the big players involved, but we are looking to grow that. If you want to scan that QR code or come find me afterwards, and I will give you the details. There's a tally form, and if you just fill in your information, we'll follow up with you next week. If you are, oh, sorry, there you go. No worries. If you were building financial products and you don't want to surrender things like self-custody, look at Gnosis Pay. So Gnosis Pay can provide aggregated on and off ramps. It can provide compliance tooling. You can obviously ship a Visa card program. It has been voted a few times the #1 custodial card program. Look at Gnosis Pay as you consider your options. Did you want to? No. And then for anyone else, we have a consumer product out. It's actually pretty good. I'm biased, clearly, but I use it. I use it as my primary account. You can send money to an IBAN. You can spend money on a card. You can earn rewards. You can send money out to an IBAN. So it feels very frictionless. And then on top of Gnosis app, there is a slightly wilder experiment in money. So some of you may have heard of the Circles protocol. Circles is another Gnosis project. It's what Bitcoin set out to be. So Bitcoin set out to be peer-to-peer money. And then because of the issuance model and the way things played out, it became gold, digital gold. Circles is based on a fair distribution protocol. So we issue 1 CRC to every human can mint 1 CRC for every hour that they're alive. It's got a gentle demurrage built in so that it kind of prevents more extreme hoarding. And it's built on a trust graph. So your CRC has value if you are a trusted node in the network. So it's based on kind of a social consensus model. And value travels along the trust graph. There are a lot of interesting experiments that is unlocking around how you can help turn communities into economies, how you can better facilitate value exchange at a grassroots level. That's there. And as we explore that, and we hope that people will help us, we've got a number of different communities we're partnering, including some of the student groups that we're working with. You can also ignore that and just take your cash back and load it back on your card or spend it in the marketplace. It's got that core payments functionality built in. Again, you can scan it on that QR code. And yeah, just in general, my job is to try to make sure that the world knows what Gnosis is. and knows a little bit about why they should care. Gnosis is a values-driven technical builder that builds really cool products that keep values at the core. So bank on Gnosis. Thank you very much for your time.